Hello dear students. In the Department of Parasitology and Mycology, we prefer to still be able to hold your parasitology classes face to face in Iran. But perhaps offline teaching will help that at least the current semester can be conducted this way under the current special conditions in Iran. I hope that we would be able to see you in Iran at the Shahid Beheshti University of Medical Sciences. The first session of the parasitology section that is teaching by me will cover the general of parasitology with a summary of the objectives and principles related to the field of medical parasitology. In this and next two slides, you can see our department website. I hope you would be able to see and check this website from your country. Since your course is starting now and late in this semester, and we haven't known your schedules, it is possible that your parasitology and mycology programs is not loaded in the website yet. At the end of this course, you should learn and know the following items for the medical parasitology. However, for the medical mycology and entomology subjects, our colleagues Dr. Ahmadi and Dr. Moin Waziri will explain based on the international office and our department schedules. Therefore, you should know important human parasites based on their classification, the meaning of important terms in parasitology, the incidence of parasitic infection in human societies and their distribution in the world and in Iran or your country. You should learn morphology, life cycles, pathogenicity, diagnosis, treatment, a little about treatment, prevention and control of important parasites. Attention! There are many medical and parasitological terms which you should know and learn because you are not familiar with them. Therefore, please pay attention to what the teacher emphasizes and categorize important point for better learning. For the practical class, you should come to our laboratory in Iran, and it's not possible to teach and practice offline. I hope to be able to do it in the possible time this semester or next. Medical parasitology and mycology courses have 4 sections, as you can see in this slide. Protozoology, helminthology, entomology, and mycology. The theoretical and practical teaching of the above courses is carried out by 10 of our colleagues from the Department of Parasitology, Mycology, and Entomology. As you can see their photos and names in the next slide. There are some keywords in medical parasitology which are very important to know their definitions very well. What are some of these keywords? What is the meaning of medical parasitology? It means that the study and the medical implication of parasites that infect humans. I tried to show these definitions for this slide and also for some of next slides by the figures of some parasites in which you will learn in the next classes. A parasite is a living organism that acquires some of its basic nutritional requirements and shelter through its contact with another living organism. Parasites may be simple unicellular protozoa or complex multicellular metazoa. Eukaryote cell is a cell with a well-defined chromosome in a membrane-bound nucleus. All parasitic organisms are eukaryote, as you can see especially in these protozoan figures. Any association between two organisms is called a symbiosis, and each member is a symbiont. There are three common symbiosis associations between organisms that in medical parasitology we should know definition of them. These three are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. In mutualism association, both organisms benefit from their relationship. As you can see, relation between butterfly and flower in the figure. However, there are not any mutualism association in medical parasitology in human. In commensalisms, one of organism benefits, while the other is neither harmed nor helped. One example for this relationship is Entaoba coli, which is a protozoan parasite in the intestine of human. There are some commensal protozoan parasites that may infect human. For the parasitism relationship, one of them benefits while another, which in medical parasitology is human, is harmed. The parasites for this one are pathogen and are very important in medical parasitology, which you should know very well them. Protozoa are unicellular organisms, like Plasmodium, the agent of malaria disease, or Entaoba histolytica, the agent of amoebiasis, or Entaoba coli, which is a commensal protozoan. Metazoa are multicellular organisms that in medical parasitology, helminths or worms like Ascaris lumbricoides and arthropods like ticks, lice, or feli are some examples of metazoa. An ectoparasite is a parasite that lives on the external surface of another living organism, like lice or ticks. An endoparasite is a parasite that lives inside of the body of another living organism, like Plasmodium, Giardia, or Toxoplasma. Host mean the organism in which the parasite lives and or cause harm. Definitive host means the organism in which the adult or sexually mature stage of the parasite lives. For example, Anopheles mosquito is a definitive host of Plasmodium, or human and cow are definitive host of Fasciola hepatica. Intermediate host is an organism in which the parasite lives during a period of its development only. For example, human is intermediate host of Plasmodium, or a kind of snail is intermediate host of Fasciola hepatica. Zoonosis means a parasitic disease in which an animal is normally the host, but it also infects human. For example, cow is host of Fasciola hepatica, or dog is host of Leishmania infantum. But both protozoan parasite can transfer to the human body and make the same disease in human. A vector is a living carrier. For example, an arthropod that transports a pathogenic organism from an infected to a non-infected host. A typical example is the female Anopheles mosquito that transmits malaria, or sandfly mosquito that transmits Leishmania disease. Reservoir is an animal that has the parasite in the same form as in humans, and that parasite can be transmitted to humans. For example, dog is a reservoir for Leishmania infantum. Obligate parasite is a parasite which have to live in or on another organism. For example, Trichomonas vaginalis is an obligate parasite in human. Facultative parasite means a parasite which has normally free living, but can also live as a parasite. For example, Naegleria fowleri or Acanthamoeba. Temporary parasite is a parasite that normally lives freely, but alternatively uses other animals or human as hosts to get food, like ticks or bug. An example for the intermittent parasite are some mosquitoes which living freely but also need blood from human for nutrition. Monoxenous parasite is a parasite that needs only one host in its life cycle. For example, Enterobius vermicularis or Giardia lamblia. In contrast, heteroxenous parasite is a parasite that needs more than one obligatory host, at least two hosts, in its life cycle. For example, Plasmodium or Fasciola hepatica. Mechanical transmission means transfer parasites directly by household flies. For example, cyst of entomobas by Musca domestica. While in biological transmission, part of the parasite's life cycle should take place at a vector's host or intermediate host. For example, Plasmodium by Anopheles. In this slide, transmission ways for the parasites to the human body are mentioned. By contacting the skin and mucous membranes such as Cercaria of schistosomes. By oral, through mouth such as Entomoeba and other intestinal parasites. Through arthropods such as Plasmodium. Through blood transition such as Plasmodium. Through placenta such as Toxoplasma gondii. Through intercourse, sexual transmission such as Trichomonas vaginalis, and from the air such as Acanthamoeba, that is a free-living amoeba. The terms of domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, or species are used to classify organisms. However, not all of these terms are used in this class. Specifically, you need to know the genus and species of each parasite and which phylum of parasites belongs to, such as protozoa or helminths. The classification of eukaryotic protozoa and parasites is written in this slide. It is important to note that the important medical parasites are teaching in the three phylum of Sarcomastigophora, or recently it was divided to Amoebozoa and Metamonada. Apicomplexa and Ciliophora are also will teaching in the protozoology course. You can see in this slide some example for the classification of those three phylum of protozoa and parasites. For example, Entomoeba histolytica and Giardia lambelia belong to the Sarcomastigophora, in which in further it divided into two subphylum of Sarcodina and Mastigophora. Plasmodiums, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, and Plasmodium ovale belong to Apicomplexa, which Apicomplexa do not have organelle of locomotion outside of the body. Balantidium coli is belong to Ciliophora, which Ciliophora group moved by cilia. All the protozoa and parasites, based on the place of their life cycle inside of the human body, are divided to the orogenital and intestinal protozoa as well as systemic protozoa. Some examples of important intestinal protozoa in which transmitted by fecal oral route and cause disease in human, and they belong to those three phylum of protozoa are Giardia lambelia, Entomoeba histolytica, Cryptosporidium parvum, and Balantidium coli. Some examples of important systemic protozoa are Plasmodium that cause malaria, Toxoplasma gondii, Leishmania, and Trypanosoma. In this slide, you can see taxonomic classification of helminths. In subkingdom of Metazoa, there are two phylum, including nematodes and platyhelminths. Nematodes are roundworms. They have body cavity and anus. Platyhelminths are flatworms and do not have body cavity. Platyhelminths divided itself to two classes of cestodes and trematodes. Cestodes are tapeworm, segmented and have head named sculex. Trematodes are not segmented and usually are leaf-shaped and are usually hermaphrodite. Some examples for these three groups of helminths are written in the right side of the slide. The same as protozoa, helminths also, based on the place of their life cycle inside of the body, divided to two groups that you can see in this slide. Therefore, there are intestinal nematodes and systemic nematodes. Intestinal trematodes or flux and systemic trematodes. Intestinal cestodes and systemic cestodes. In this slide, some examples for important intestinal nematodes are written. Ascaris lumbricoides, which is roundworm. Trichiuris trichiura, which is whipworm. Ankylostoma and Necator, which these two worms are hookworms. Strongyloides, stercoralis, and Enterobius vermicularis, which Enterobius is pinworm or threadworm. You can see some explanation about these worms in the slide. Some examples of important systemic nematodes are Filaria, including Onchocerca volvulus, Wuchereria bancrofti, and Burugia malayi, as well as Toxocara. Please read explanation of these nematodes yourself. Phaseolopsis buski in intestinal, and Schistosoma hematobium, Schistosoma japonicum, and Schistosoma mansoni are examples of important trematodes in which our colleagues will teach and explain them in their classes for you. Finally, you should know how to prevent transmission of parasites from an infected patient or from environment or from infected animals to the healthy people. For this, you should know transmission routes of the parasites. For prevention, personal hygiene, including hand wash with soap, health food and especially vegetables, and also use of healthy water, public health care, including proper disposal of garbage, environmental health, healthy water, health education, including use of breastfeeding mother in infants, health education in school and through radio and TV are recommended. But at the moment, there are no any vaccine for prevention of parasites worldwide. Now, I wish to say a summary for the protozoan parasites. What is the definition of protozoa? You should answer to the questions yourself before proceeding to the next slide for seeing my answers. Are all protozoa pathogenic? Is there a useful protozoan parasite in the human body? How many protozoa have been reported in the human body? Is human the only host of human protozoa? How is the distribution of protozoa in the world? How are the protozoan parasites in appearance? How are forms or morphology of human protozoa in their life cycles? What is the size of human protozoa? How the protozoa breeding? How do protozoa feed or eat? How the protozoan parasites dispose waste materials? How is reproduction in protozoan parasites? How they duplicate? What is risk factors in the transmission of protozoa? What are some of important human protozoan parasites? For further study, any book in English or for Arab student in Arabic language that you can provide would be suitable, especially medical parasitology by Markel and Vogue is good. Have good days and good luck.